Skye and I are very pleased to be here to share with you. South Australian School for Vision Impaired, or known as SASVI, is a unique service in Australia, as it is the only government-funded school and service specifically designed to support academically able students with severe vision impairments. All students that attend SASVI or the school's secondary VR programs are legally blind, with 660 vision or less, or with severe field restriction. The school also has a statewide support service to support just over 200 students with vision impairments who attend their local school. In South Australia, students begin school at age 5 and complete primary school by age 13, and then move to secondary school. SASVI is a primary school with 25 full-time students spread across 5 composite year-level classes. Students follow the Australian curriculum and expanded core curriculum for students with vision impairment. There are 2 images on the screen. The first is of a tactile globe with a student pointing to where Adelaide is on the map of Australia. The second is one of our younger students lying in a hammock. Prior to 2009, SASVI ran a model where students with vision impairments continued to use print as their reading and writing medium until there was a significant deterioration in their vision that made it necessary for them to learn Braille. Teachers were running separate literacy programs for Braille and print students. I found this quite difficult to manage in a class with students with varying abilities and using different mediums. A fair amount of time was spent planning and programming for individual students, with little benefit for students to be working one-on-one with the teacher, when they could be engaging in learning activities with each other. I wanted to be able to teach both Braille and print reading students simultaneously as a group. I also envisaged the benefits of pre-Braille skills for all students. As far as we were aware, there was no known literacy program available that catered for Braille and print students, that aligned the introduction of phonological and phonemic awareness to develop early reading. The image on the screen shows the year 2009, written with a sparkler effect, signifying the start of our journey. New things were happening at SASVI. I was the newly appointed reception class teacher with my first Braille reading student, and Skye in her first year of teaching as the year 1-2 class teacher. We identified a number of students with low vision who could benefit from learning in a dual medium. And finally, we recognized that some students at SASVI with specific learning difficulties would benefit from learning Braille too. The image on the screen shows 3 young reception students. The first student is reading a Braille book, the second is pegging pegs onto a card, and the last child is learning to write on a Perkins Brailler. At this point in time, we began to structure learning to include a broad and balanced approach to teaching Braille in the following 5 areas: tactile exploration, fine motor skills, mathematical concepts, spatial awareness, and group work. We recognize the importance of developing tactile skills for all students. As the students progress with these skills, the focus of the program moves towards the intricacies of the literacy Braille code, identifying letters, contractions, word signs, punctuation, rules associated with the code, and enjoying working with and in Braille. Braille technology was incorporated and students began working with Braille notes at an early age. As some students had residual vision, it was agreed by the group that everyone would participate in Braille butterflies under blindfold. Initially, some students were resistant, but when playing tactile board games, the students who were blind felt that those students with some vision were gaining an unfair advantage. We noticed that those students with low vision relaxed and were able to participate without the interference of their residual vision. The name Braille Butterflies came about after the first group of students explored the story of The Very Hungry Caterpillar by Eric Carle. The students were asked to come up with an interesting name for their special Braille learning group. Braille Butterflies was born. The image shows our initial Braille Butterflies group, 5 students dressed in an eclectic array of clothes from the dress-up box. They are wearing blindfolds. Pre-Braille skills. Each week, students participate in a variety of activities to develop pre-Braille skills. On a Monday, the focus was on tactile exploration. Tuesday saw students developing fine motor skills. Wednesday, we focused on activities to develop mathematical concepts. Thursday saw the development of sound spatial knowledge and concepts essential for students with vision impairment. Friday rounded off our week with Braille literacy activities, which included looking at and reading tactile picture books, reading and singing songs and poems, and playing on the Perkins Brailler. In our handout, you can find a detailed list of the activities we use to develop pre-Braille skills. And the image on the screen shows a young student exploring a tactile map of the world using his hands. Comprehensive literacy program. Now students are at an early Braille literacy stage. We use the Braille for Infants, Braille reading scheme developed by Royal National Institute for Blind People to develop a cohesive reading, writing and spelling program for our students. Students have the opportunity to read whole words and books after learning just a few letters. Daily tracking activities are selected from the Mangold Braille program, Tactile Perception and Braille Letter Recognition by Sally Mangold, and supplemented with stories created using Gail Lamb's fingerprints approach. We wanted to ensure tracking activities were meaningful and engaging. The image on the screen shows on the left a page of Braille showing page 1 of the Goldilocks tracking story developed by Skye using Gail Lamb's fingerprints approach. Next to it is the printed text for each line of the tracking story that the teacher would say as the student is reading the story. So Goldilocks, page 1, the initial tracking line. Once upon a time, there were 3 bears. They lived in a little house in the woods. There was a father bear, a mother bear, and a little baby bear. The Comprehensive Literacy Program, spelling. We were now on a roll. We could see that this program was working well in the classroom. Students were developing strong reading skills, and we noticed that we needed an explicit, systematic spelling program. In 2011, we developed the Spelling Rules for Junior Primary Spelling Program for Braille and print readers. In this program, Braille reading students are introduced to fully contracted text from reception. We focus on teaching and learning contractions, knowing that students will remediate it in their spelling when they are learning to touch type. All students can participate in any of the activities, regardless of their learning medium. The text they're using is in both Braille and print. Students can work together on the task. In the classroom, Braille students use Perkins Braillers, Smart Braillers, Braille Notes, and computers with screen readers such as JAWS, Job Access with Speech. The image on the screen shows 2 students reading together. The child on the left is reading a print book enlarged under CCTV. The child next to her is reading the same book in Braille. They're able to assist each other when they read an unfamiliar word or contraction and are working independently from the teacher.
So in 2012, a whole school community reading block was introduced. All students read one-on-one with an adult for 30 minutes daily. All staff at SASV are involved and parents and community volunteers assist. We are fortunate to have an accessible format production team on site and a resource centre with access to a wide variety of Braille reading schemes at SASV, which include Braille for Infants, the Ladybird Graduated Braille Reading Scheme and Takeoff Series, all from the RNIB, and the Patterns Program for beginning Braille readers from the American Printing House for the Blind. Aussie Dots is an Australian reading scheme consisting of 255 fully illustrated stories that introduce contracted Braille to students in their early years of schooling. It provides a systematic approach with the flexibility to individualise books for each beginning Braille reader. Aussie Dots encourages the development of tactile graphicacy and a love of reading as it is packed with stories, poems, recipes, procedures, and offers exposure to non-text sources of information through graphs, tables, mathematical symbols, maps, and labelled diagrams. The image shows a print page from an Aussie Dots book. The title of the book is A Pie Chart. Within the text, the student is exposed to reading tally marks and interpreting a pie graph. The photograph shows a young student exploring the tactile diagram of the pie graph with both hands. A comprehensive literacy program, writing. Students are introduced to a variety of writing tools from a young age. The Perkins Brailler is the initial tool given to all students who may become Braille readers, and Braille notes are introduced as soon as students have learnt their Braille alphabet. This tool is highly motivating as it provides auditory feedback. Touch typing is introduced in Year 1 when students are 6 years old, once they have a competent knowledge of the Braille alphabet. All students have access to computers or laptops in the classroom with JAWS screen reading program. More recently, the Perkins Smart Brailler has been introduced to students who are dual medium writers as it provides auditory and visual feedback. The 4 images show students at SASV engaged in writing using different tools. The Perkins Brailler, a Smart Brailler, a Braille Note and an iPad Pro with enlarged text. The name Braille Butterflies, a whole school approach to literacy, as mentioned earlier, came about after students studied The Very Hungry Caterpillar by Eric Carle. They made associations between the life cycle of a butterfly and their Braille learning journey, and they drew pictures to represent each stage from eggs to butterflies. The following quotes are from the inaugural Braille Butterflies students who are now in years 11 and 12 and are about to complete their secondary schooling. The image on the screen shows these stages as drawn by the students in a life cycle, surrounded by circles with the students' quotes, representing the 4 stages of metamorphosis to Braille proficiency. As an egg, quote, "Right now we are like caterpillars on a leaf. We are small and don't know very much about Braille." At this stage, students are learning letters of the alphabet and developing sound tactile skills in preparation for reading, spelling and writing. Then, our fingers are like little caterpillars, eating up lots of Braille dots. At this stage, students are learning spelling rules, reading short texts and writing sentences. As a chrysalis, we are learning all the rules so that we can emerge. Students learn more about the world as they access and understand a variety of texts. And lastly, a butterfly is the final stage when you know everything and you can fly. Students are multi-skilled, confident and efficient Braille readers, spellers and writers. The butterfly effect. The butterfly effect is the concept that small causes can have a large effect, that even the flutter of a butterfly's wing can cause a hurricane on the other side of the world. If you change even the smallest of life's details, you can completely change its outcome. Since Braille Butterflies was established, we have seen great improvements in literacy outcomes for our students, and many are now performing at or above their sighted peers in both state and national standardised assessments and tests. There are 4 graphs on the screen, each representing individual students' literacy results from the National Assessment Program in Literacy and Numeracy, affectionately known as NAPLAN. Students sit this test every 2 years, beginning in Year 3. Students have made significant growth between Years 3 and 5. The star represents the national average for each component of the test: reading, writing, spelling, grammar and punctuation. The graphs show the positive impact Braille Butterflies is having on our students. I would like to give you a little bit of background about each student. So student A has optic nerve hyperplasia with roving nystagmus and no central fixation. He has a small amount of vision in his left eye, enough that he can read large print at a distance of less than 3 centimetres. This student had early intervention, and from a young age he was an avid reader and enjoyed writing his own stories. At SASV, we focused on developing his reading comprehension skills. He uses what little functional vision he has to read on an iPod, an iPad, and play video games, but Braille is his learning medium. Student B has bilateral microphthalmia with no functional vision. She migrated to Australia from China at age 6 with no English language and had not been exposed to any forms of schooling. A small class environment enabled Sharon to provide an intensive English language learning program whilst developing her pre-Braille skills. This was challenging as she was also tactile defensive. She is now 13 years old, is fluent in English and enjoys reading Harry Potter and Jane Austen novels. Grammar and punctuation continue to be a focus for this student. Student C has Rieger's syndrome with bilateral corneal opacity. This student moved to SASV in Year 1 after a deterioration in his vision. He began the Braille Butterflies program with fluctuating enthusiasm to learn Braille. In Year 2 and Year 3, he chose large print as his learning medium. In the last 2 years, this student has had multiple corneal grafts on both eyes and has had fluctuating levels of functional vision, which has caused trauma and emotional turmoil. He has benefited from learning Braille in a small group with peers who understand his situation. He is always offered Braille and print, and he makes choices over his learning medium. And student D had retinoblastomas with both eyes enucleated prior to him beginning preschool. This student is enthusiastic and inquisitive and loved being part of Braille Butterflies. He was also the catalyst for us to begin the whole school community reading block. We knew he had great potential, but due to him arriving at school late and missing the morning literacy block, he was not developing at a consistent rate. Community reading block was an incentive for him to come to school, and he thrived on a one-on-one time with reading with an adult. His overall literacy has improved dramatically. To gain data relevant for students with vision impairment, we also use the NIL analysis of reading ability for students with low vision and the NIL analysis for reading ability for Braille students, the TWOS Braille speed test and the Lorimer Braille recognition test. These graphs show the growth that the same students have made in their reading ability and comprehension. These students are reading above their age level, and as are a majority of the students at SASV. The data for student C was not included as he was absent from school due to multiple surgeries. Have I got time? We believe, through the evidence that we have collected, that Braille Butterflies is an effective tactile reading program because students are taught in class by a qualified teacher of vision impairment as part of the whole school and whole class group. Students are immersed in tactile experiences and develop strong pre-Braille skills. Students are taught to read contracted Braille from a young age, and contractions are discussed as they appear in a text, even if they have not yet been formally taught. Students are immersed in Braille throughout the school day and have access to resources in their preferred medium in all subject areas. And students with residual vision are encouraged to wear a blindfold for formal Braille learning activities. And the image shows 2 children wearing blindfolds, and they're happily playing a game, and they're smiling and waving in the direction of the camera. We believe that South Australian School for Vision Impaired students are successful due to the introduction of a broad and balanced approach to teaching pre-Braille reading skills in the areas of tactile exploration, fine motor skills, mathematical concepts, spatial awareness, and small group work. A cohesive reading, writing and spelling program for emergent literacy in the early years of schooling, followed by an explicit systematic spelling program at a pace determined by individual students throughout their primary years. A successful community reading block, which is embraced by the whole school community. Our teachers are passionate about providing programs that allow students opportunities to reach their full potential, which is demonstrated in learning outcomes being achieved in the data that we collect. And finally, we're excited that SASV students are choosing literacy-based activities during their free time, such as reading books and writing stories. Our students are enthusiastic about all aspects of literacy as they are experiencing success and are deeply engaged in their learning. Thank you.